I'm a teacher and I'm also the founder of Ireland's largest study website called Studyclix.ie. So what Studyclix is it divides each of the subjects on the junior cert and the leaving cert into topics, and then for each gives you past exam questions, marking schemes, sample answers, quizzes, kind of everything you need to learn or to teach that particular topic. And then for teachers, it gives them the ability to create quizzes, create exams using that database of questions. Yeah, so I was always interested in science since I was a child, and I kind of followed that advice that you often hear students often get, which is like follow what your interests are, your passion. And I suppose my dad used to bring me a lot to the Natural History Museum as a kid, and I've always been really interested in kind of animals and nature and geography. So I went on to study science in Trinity College, and I specialised in zoology. Now, I was a little bit funny for most of my class who loved, like, they wanted to be vets or they wanted to work in the zoo. I actually don't really like touching animals. I don't like dogs jumping up on me or holding turtles or anything like that. I'm very interested in the theory of animals and evolution and so on, but not kind of picking them up. So I was kind of doing zoology from the perspective of just purely following my passion and my interest. But I guess what I always wanted to do was to pretty much live in the west of Ireland. I'm from Dublin, as you can probably guess from the accent. And when I graduated, I kind of looked and I said, what can I do that will allow me to live in Sligo, where is a place I live now and I wanted to live. And that's where becoming a science teacher came in. And then once I started doing that, I really enjoyed it. And then I suppose out of that came Studyclix. I would say no, unless I was on an island and the only thing left was a pineapple. But no, I would never in my entire life put a pineapple on a pizza. So maybe it's something I can discover, but not up till now. Well, it's a funny question because in Studyclix, everybody who works is remote, which means we're not all in one big office here. And 5 years ago, I would have said, wouldn't it be great if we all had a tool that allowed us all to speak from wherever we are and see each other just like a real meeting? And that's kind of been invented, and that's Zoom, and I'm sure everyone since COVID has been familiar with that. But yeah, there's a few tools that I use all the time which kind of have only really come around this year, which is like the idea that you can record videos, you can record videos, talk to people, record audio messages. All those things make my life as a person running a business a lot easier. So yeah, so I suppose a lot of the things I wished for in previous years have all kind of come to light in the last year or two, which makes my job a lot easier. Yeah, I can't emphasize how important it is to actually listen to what the end user believes or thinks about your product. Like, we do surveys all the time of our current users, and every couple of months we actually run little focus groups online where we might have 3 or 4 students just telling us what they think of Studyclix. If Studyclix could do one other thing, what would it be? And it's very interesting when you talk to people and they tell you, I wish it did this, or I don't like the way it does that. You really do learn a lot from that. Yeah, that's a tricky question. I suppose in my kind of private time, I read a lot of books about polar exploration, and I've often thought that Ernest Shackleton, he's a great kind of leader. I'd be interested to kind of be on one of his expeditions, not only because I could get to see some of Antarctica, a place I've always wanted to visit, but actually see how he talks to people. And he seems to get everyone to really buy into what he's trying to achieve. So I'd love to see how he does that. So yeah, definitely pick Ernest Shackleton. Um, and then yeah, I've always been I'm not a massive Elvis fan, but I always loved the idea of he's such a star. I'd love to see Elvis live and just see him perform.
Cool. One more.
One more. Wow, another one. Do they have to be dead?
No, they don't have to be dead. They could be alive.
Okay, so I'd love to, I'd love to see Neil Young. I saw him once years ago in Austria at a gig, and I listened to a lot of Neil Young music. I'd love to spend a bit of time with him personally. He's kind of a fascinating character. And I'll add a fourth actually. I love Tom Waits, and he's a kind of fascinating character as well. I'd love to actually sit down and have a few drinks with him. Yeah, my biggest fear in business is, I guess, losing touch. Like, our business is is very much aimed at, well, yes, teachers, but mainly younger people, students. And I think it's really, really, really important for business owners to stay in touch with the end users. And I've spoken before about the importance of doing market research, talking to people. I suppose the way we've kind of mitigated against this is that we employ a lot of very young people who've just done their leaving cert. They understand what the pains are, and I think that's a really important step to not losing touch. I would say one of the most important things an entrepreneur can have is not to be overly worried about failure. If you thought through everything about starting a business, you'd probably never do it. Yeah, I think you have to have, you don't have to be arrogant or anything like that, but you have to have a self-belief that, this will work. And even if it doesn't, who cares? I'm going to do my best at it. I think that kind of self-belief is key. Yeah, so I suppose it wasn't a sudden transition, because even when I started teaching all those years ago, I was already starting on the Studyclix business kind of late at night and so on. So there was this kind of transition period between the two. But I suppose the way if you think about what the job of a teacher is, it mainly involves communication. And similarly, as the CEO of a business, a lot of it is communication. It's communicating with your staff, with your customers, with other people within the business community. So yeah, so I think the skill set I had as a teacher are easily transferable. So I didn't find it a massive transition, to be honest. Yeah, so I suppose as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be willing to do any of the jobs. And in Studyclix, we always there's an event in the RDS every year called the Higher Options. And if you can see behind me, there's the Studyclix mascot, which is our robot Clicks. A couple of times I've had to step into that mascot outfit and walk around the RDS and get my photograph taken inside that, because, to give the other guys a break. So yeah, that's pretty fun doing that. Yeah, my number one tip there would be to be a good listener. I think it's so important to actually listen to what customers are saying to you, because that will help you develop a product that they want and not necessarily a product that you want. And I think for kind of would-be entrepreneurs out there, something that was a good tip for me was the idea of the minimal viable product. So don't try and build, this massive big product. Try and get the basic product, build that, and then listen to what people think of that, because what you'll then go on to build might be very different than what you were planning to build originally. So be a good listener is super important as an entrepreneur. Yeah, so I think the best part of being an entrepreneur is you have the opportunity to kind of guide your own destiny. Like, so I'm talking to you here from Sligo, which is a place I wanted to live. I can, I've relative flexibility about the hours I work and the days I work. I'd say the biggest drawback of being an entrepreneur is that sometimes it can be tricky to switch off. Like when I go home on a Friday at 5 o'clock, it's not like I don't think about Studyclix for all of Saturday and Sunday. So you're constantly, I wouldn't say I worry about it, but you're definitely aware of it. So there's a responsibility that comes with that same freedom. Yeah, I kind of, let me think. So like most meetings I would at some point, I might suggest things or give ideas. And I think it's really important for people at the kind of the management level of a business to show that they're not afraid to put stupid ideas across, because it puts everyone else at ease. Like way back before I started teaching, I used to do a bit of advertising where I was a copywriter for ads, which basically means you come up with the ideas for ads. And I think I learned back then that like it's really important to be able to put out ideas, good ones, but as well bad ones, because it makes everyone feel comfortable that their ideas are valued and they're not going to be judged and say that's a stupid idea. So yeah, so I think it's actually really important to make a fool of yourself as a manager in a company. Yeah, I think the secret to good teamwork is to have, again, to go back to what I said earlier, to be a good listener. So to listen to people, to make time to actually talk to people about their own lives. And I think, some of the younger people in Studyclix have been really good at this. So instead of us just talking work the whole time and like meeting, always just about work items, we, about 2 years ago, started to do kind of social events. Now with COVID, it's all been online, but it actually really is good. So every quarter, we all meet up and we do things like, one of the girls is an amazing baker, so we all do a baking thing over Zoom, which sounds kind of crazy, but at the same time we're all, having a couple of drinks, chatting, and you actually get to know the people you work with beyond working life, and it's been a really positive thing to do. Yeah, so I think what's really important in marketing is that you try and tap into existing networks, right? So if you think in our particular business in Studyclix, for us, schools are very networked places. So you have, if one teacher discovers Studyclix in, say, Brisbane in Australia, they'll tell their other teacher friends, and then they'll go on to tell their students. So see, if you're trying to grow a business, rather than thinking always like, how can I advertise, think more about, is there networks I can tap into to encourage virality between your users? Yeah, we've done a lot of different things and we've experimented with a lot of things in our day. One of the ones we did actually years ago, which was a lot of fun, was we printed money. We printed Studyclix money. And what it was, there were little vouchers, €10 off vouchers. So each voucher, but they looked like a €10 note, but instead of like a face, it was the Studyclix robot, but they looked very much like €10 notes. And when we did the first round of them, they were actually too similar to a €10. And when we went to the RDS, there were kids trying to buy burgers and all with these €10 things. So we had to actually make them a little bigger and 25% bigger than the real thing and so on. So yeah, that was one of the crazy things. It was a really successful marketing campaign, but it almost got us in trouble because it was too successful and too realistic. Yeah, so in a digital business like Studyclix, I guess when we say suppliers, we're often talking about, talented people that, like, so for example, we have our graphic designer is based up in Norway. And what we're looking for in someone like that is we're looking for really good talent. So we would have found Claudel, as she was a really good illustrator, found her work online, said, I really like, the style you have, and she's developed the whole look and feel of Studyclix over the years. So for us, I guess in a supplier, we're looking for talent, uniqueness, and then once we actually get talking to these people, like, are they people who we can work with and who would buy into the project and want to be very creative with us. Yeah, interesting. I suppose first off, I definitely bring my wife Vanessa, because yeah, I just would like to spend some time in a desert island. Now we've got three kids, so the problem is who's the other person, because I can't bring them all. So I think, yeah, just to be fair to everyone, I think I'll just stick with me and Vanessa, and I presume we can get off the desert island and go back and mind the kids at some point. I would say the hardest lesson, and I would say, all entrepreneurs should be aware of this, that like success takes time, right? A lot of people think, I'll just come up with my product or my service, get my business out there, and the money's going to roll in 6 months later. Generally, what people are over ambitious in terms of the timeline. So I think the main thing I would say to entrepreneurs out there is be prepared that this is going to take you time. And for a lot of people, you need to think about that. Like, so for example, as a teacher, I was still working as a teacher. That gave me that flexibility of time. Whereas a lot of entrepreneurs, they have 6 months to make a go of something, and if it doesn't work, that's them. They're back to whatever they were doing before. So just be conscious. Success takes time. Yeah, so I suppose when way back all those years ago when Keith and I were starting the business, we were talking about the name for the business and like the logo and all this kind of stuff. And I remember it was kind of a funny one. Back at that time, we'd come up with the name Studyclix, but then it was like, what's our kind of look and feel of the brand going to be? And I remember at the time, I fell into what we call the owl trap, which is, you think because you're an educational business, owls are wise, let's put an owl as our mascot. And I remember at the time thinking really strongly, yeah, this is the right decision, let's go with that. And Keith was like, everyone does owls, why are we doing this? It's so like, there's nothing original about it. And to me, that was my biggest mistake, was thinking it was kind of like, it was such an obvious trap to fall into. And so I guess the reverse of that, it's not probably the best decision we've ever made, but the fact that I eventually listened to Keith and said, you know what, an owl is pretty standard and not very creative. Let's move on from that. And I'm glad we did. He was right in the end.
He was a wise old owl. So
Yeah.
there you go. Luke, thanks a million for joining us.